evening and welcome to the 2011 Mayoral Forum. We have invited each of the candidates whose names will appear on the primary ballot in Baltimore City. Joining us in the studio tonight are, in alphabetical order, Democrats Frank Conway, Jody Landers, Conaway, Catherine Pugh, Stephanie Rawlings-Blake, and Otis Rowley. Most of tonight's program will consist of discussions of top issues led by our panelists, Charles Robinson of MPT and Jennifer Gilbert, news anchor at Fox 45. And we should note that Channel 45 will rebroadcast this program at 11:30 tonight, and WEAA Radio is carrying the broadcast live, along, of course, with MPT. Given the large group we have tonight, we're going to start with a lightning round of questions. The idea is to ask a focused question of each candidate and ask for a brief reply so that viewers at home can quickly get to meet all of the potential mayors of Baltimore. So we begin with Mr. Conaway. Sir, you've said the city needs deep surgery. What sort of procedure do you have in mind?
Well, there's open heart surgery, which I would ask Dr. Watkins to kind of look over, Dr. Levi Watkins. We need core joint surgery to separate twins, the mayor and the governor, and I would ask Ben Carson to do that. Yes, we need to have some transplants, we need some implants, we need a blood transfusion, and we need open heart surgery. We've got to cut into this city and do the right thing. People need jobs, jobs, jobs. And it's beginning to catch on because the greatest form of flattery is imitation, and my opponents are imitating me now, saying it's jobs that's needed.
Mr. Landers, you had a close encounter with the crime problem, I understand, when your car was stolen. What have you learned from that experience dealing with the bureaucracy, and how has it informed your campaign?
Well, it's informed my campaign to the extent that I see where a lot of city services are broken. City services now are more tuned to serving the city workers and not necessarily city residents. I had a horrible experience in terms of having to clear traffic citations during the period of time that my car was stolen. No citizen should have to go through that. And then I was never notified when my car was recovered. So, and by the way, I received a parking citation 14 days after my car was stolen. So some human being had to be standing next to my vehicle putting a parking ticket on it. The system is broken. It needs to be fixed. And there are relatively easy fixes. You just have to put the people in place to do it.
Senator Pugh, you came in second in the Baltimore Sun poll that was released over the weekend. I suppose that was the good news. The bad news was trailing the incumbent by almost 40 points. Does your campaign need a new message to make up that ground?
No. When you survey 1% of the population, I would say not. And our campaign is right on track where it needs to be. 7 out of 10 doors that we knock on, people say they want us to be the next mayor of Baltimore. And we're very strategic in our plans. Our television ads go up tomorrow, so I'm very excited about that. And we'll be hitting the doors as we consistently have done throughout this campaign. I think our message is on target. People tell us that this city needs leadership, it needs vision, it needs someone who understands that you got to invest in the people, you have to grow this city. This city has no focus in terms of how you grow the population. We have 47,000 boarded houses in this city. We're the 6th most dirtiest city in America, and we can do better. So I believe that our message is right on target. People are telling us every day that we need a visionary, we need a leader, we need someone who can turn this city around and put it in the right direction. So I'm looking forward to becoming the next mayor of Baltimore.
Madam Mayor, will the car race, the Grand Prix next weekend, turn out to be worth the cost?
So thank you again, Jeff, for the invitation. My name is Stephanie Rawlings-Blake, and I was born in Baltimore, very, very proud to have served as your mayor for the past 18 months. When I came into office, we were in the middle of a crisis. Budget deficit that threatened our ability, not just our bond rating, but our ability to provide basic services. But just like with the storms that we've had, we've tackled every single challenge. And just like with the race, I'm excited about the ability to showcase our city, and the people, not just in Baltimore, but around our country, are excited to be in town. So Tourism is our fourth largest industry, and I plan to support it and the jobs that it creates.
Mr. Rowley, can a guy from Jersey City be elected mayor of Baltimore?
Well, definitely. I think a guy from Jersey City whose home is now Baltimore. This is my hometown now. And Jeff, I want to thank you for this opportunity. I want to thank MPT and Fox 45 for the opportunity to talk directly to the citizens of Baltimore. The reality is Baltimore can only start growing again when we open our doors and accept those who need to come in, those who want to move here and make it their home. We have 620,000 people in the city of Baltimore, a city that was at one point almost 1 million people. It got that large because people moved in. And you don't want those who weren't born here, who don't have a high school ring from Baltimore, to feel like they're second-class citizens. Everyone who comes here, who makes Baltimore their home, is a Baltimorean. So yes, I'm excited about the fact that I live here now, that this is my home, that I moved my mom here from Jersey City, a sister and her husband, their 3 kids from Maine, and another sister and her husband from Philadelphia. This is a hometown to me. This is my hometown, and I'm ready, willing, and able to fight for it and to lead it.
Well, we've met the candidates. Now we'll turn it over to Fox 45's Jennifer Gilbert for a section of the debate focused on taxes and the economy.
A Wall Street Journal opinion piece on Friday was headlined, "How Property Taxes Are Killing Baltimore." The city has lost 53,000 jobs over the last decade, 30,000 people, almost 500,000 people since 1950. One economist describes it as a death spiral. All of you have put forward plans to talk about reducing property taxes. Mayor Rawlings-Blake, your plan cuts taxes less than 10% over almost 10 years. Is it too little, too late, and is it too speculative, relying on a slots parlor that we don't even have yet?
So I think everyone agrees on the need to reduce property taxes. It's clear. The only difference between me and the other candidates is I have a realistic plan. It is achievable and it is financially responsible, while the other opponents have plans, reckless plans, that would cost the city up to $400 million in revenues. That would force cuts in things like public safety, in things like sanitation. It would cripple our ability to provide public education for our kids. These are the things that they're promising, but they're also at the same time threatening to cut the budget by up to $400 million. You can't have it both ways, and I think for me, I want to be responsible, and I have a plan that will work.
Senator Pugh, you're promising to cut property taxes 50% in 4 years, a very dramatic reduction, and you hope to make up for that difference by having people move into the city. But by some estimates, you'd have to have hundreds of thousands of people move in to make up that revenue. Now, obviously, that's not realistic. So what is your plan to balance the budget while making such a drastic cut in the property tax rate?
I think one of the problems is that the mayor doesn't understand that it's about growing the population from within. 49% of the residencies that live in this city are in fact renters. You begin by investing in the people who live in our city, and that's what's wrong with Baltimore. No one has focused on growing Baltimore over the last few decades, and as a result you find yourself trying to balance a budget as opposed to looking at how you invest in the people that live in the city. We have 10,000 college and university students living right here in our city, but when they graduate they move to other jurisdictions. So you create a pipeline from the colleges and universities to home ownership in our city. You grow the population by focusing on the renters in our city and create home ownership. If you were doing those kind of things, you would not be cutting the budget, you would be adding revenue to the budget. You have 47,000 board-up houses, and this city owns 25% of the board-up houses in this city, but yet we've not looked at community development corporations and giving them the opportunity to also participate in home ownership. If you were focusing on 3,000 home ownerships a year, you would be adding another $9 million to our budget. The other issue is looking at our city agencies, where we have so much waste in city government. So I have a workable plan. It's on my website, but it's about growing the population from within and then looking at how we bring additional people into the city. I too am from another city. I grew up in Philadelphia. I came here. I graduated from Morgan State University. I'm the kind of citizen that you want to keep in Baltimore. And as has already been said, we want to grow our city, we grow our population, and when you invest in the people, you will see, just like the Wall Street Street Journal said, you have to cut property taxes in the city, but you have to be responsible. I don't think anyone on this panel has talked about cutting the budget in order to add additional revenue. It's about growing the revenue and then adding that, and that's how you cut property taxes in this city. Thank you.
Speaking of those 47,000 vacant homes, Mr. Landers, I know your plan is to tax those properties at a higher rate. But I'm curious, if people aren't fixing up their properties, are they going to be taxpayers that are going to pay a higher rate? Are you setting up a scenario where you simply have more delinquencies?
We may have more delinquencies, but one of the problems we have now is we have a system that allows people to sit for decades on unimproved property and not pay their fair share. The way our system works now is if you maintain your property, your tax rate goes up, your tax liability goes up. If you don't maintain your property, it goes down. We can completely revamp that, as they have in Washington, D.C., where they have a system that shows inhabited residential property pays less than 1%. Our tax rate is 2.25%. Vacant property pays 5% if it's been sitting vacant for more than a year, and blighted property pays 10%. What that does is it creates an incentive, either invest or divest, and it will begin chipping away at these 47,000 vacant houses. We need to reward people who are helping the tax base to grow. It isn't just about growing the population, it's about growing the value of properties as well. And we're not doing that with the way we're currently structured. We also desperately need a land bank in Baltimore City that will reform the tax sale process and better manage these 47,000 vacant houses. What we do now is we allow these properties to sit for decades, destroy values in neighborhoods, create health and sanitation problems, crime problems, and then we have to pursue those property owners with city resources. We have to go to court against them. That makes no sense. We should make the property tax code work for us in stimulating improvements.
Thank you. And Mr. Rowley, you also want to cut property taxes by 50%, but over 10 years. Your plan has been called into question because of some potential constitutional issues and whether state law would have to be rewritten. Is your plan practical, given that that might have to happen?
I think it is very much practical, Jennifer. The reality is much of what I want to do, much of what many mayors have wanted to do in the past has called for us to go to Annapolis and to seek legislative changes. I think it's very much a practical plan because it provides an opportunity for us to do the tax cuts over a 10-year period in a way so that it's reasonable and responsible. We cannot keep doing what we've been doing. We know it doesn't work. Over the last 18 months, we've raised taxes and fees 60 times and cut services. It's not working. The only jurisdiction in the state of Maryland not to grow in the last 10 years. The only major city in the Northeast Corridor not to grow in the last 10 years. What we're doing isn't working. And so I think thinking outside the box, but doing it in a way in which you understand the process, understand the system, and understand the services that you need to deliver to grow the city is what my plan is made up of.
Mr. Conaway, it was reported last week that you were receiving homestead tax credits on 2 properties, a rental property in addition to your home, and you told a reporter that you didn't know that you were receiving those tax breaks. Why should voters trust you if this was at best an oversight or at worst taking advantage of the system in a way that certainly most constituents can and wouldn't do?
I think constituents should support me because of my work over the years. I don't guess there's anybody that's born and lives a long life like I have and never made a mistake. So I think that it's excusable. But let me just say something to Madam Mayor, who said that all of us have a tax reduction plan, and that does not work. I have profit no tax reduction plan because I know that they can't do it. All of them are giving you promises, 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 and it happens every election. They say they're going to do these things and can't do it. None of these tax plans, and I've been through it over the last 12 years, none of these tax plans are workable. None of them.
Madam Mayor, is that true? Are you making promises that you can't keep given the budget realities that Baltimore faces?
I've faced in my time, my 18 months as mayor, some of the toughest time our city has ever seen. We had a historic $121 million budget deficit. I fixed that budget, protected our funding for schools, hired more officers, made sure we kept our libraries open, as well as maintained funding for training centers, all without raising property taxes by 1 single cent. I did it by focusing